everyone, and welcome back to another video. So my younger sister Jessica recently had a beautiful fall wedding. They got married in is that considered a barn or a farm?
It was a barn.
Okay. They had a beautiful barn wedding in Fort Erie, and in this they had a beautiful fall wedding in Port Colborne, and just like I did with my very first YouTube video of making my own wedding dress, I took a bunch of time lapses and behind the scenes footage of making her wedding dress, both to look back on and also to share the process with you all.
To share with all of you.
And also just to share the process with all of you. So before I even started designing my sister's dress, I accompanied her to a bunch of different bridal stores to try on different silhouettes and different details so she could really get an idea of the style she liked on herself. Once we had a pretty good idea, I made up this sketch, and you can see that for the base of the dress, we went with a very slim, almost a trumpet-like silhouette. She didn't want anything strapless, so I made sure to add little dainty straps. The bodice had a very slight sweetheart neckline for the front. We used a beaded lace that she chose for the entire bodice that trickled down past the waist, and we also used the same lace for the godet inserts in the skirt, and we added a train which would bustle up for the reception. Over top of the dress, we designed a bolero style long sleeve terno with a relatively high neck that we made in the same lace that we used for the dress to give the whole outfit one seamless look. And this is what the finished sketch looks like. We did make some minor adjustments along the way, so the finished product looks slightly different, and I'll be explaining the changes as we go along. So once the sketch was completed, I could begin making all of the pattern pieces. In this time lapse, you'll see that I like to drape all of my pieces, and if you're not familiar with pattern making terms, you can see me using a muslin to sort of shape around the mannequin itself, and I then lay them flat onto the table so that I can adjust any of the curves, all of the lines, and also added my seam allowances. And this will turn into the pattern pieces that I use to cut out in the main fabrics to sew up the dress. For the main part of the dress, or the self fabric, we chose to go with an ivory shade of a lightweight crepe, and you can see me cutting it out here. And once all of the main pieces are cut out, I start to sew them all together. So once the base of the dress was all sewn together, this is what it looked like on a mannequin. And you can see that we decided to make the back portion of the bodice sheer, and we also decided to add a sheer train godet as well. This is a photo of me trying it on just to get a better idea of what it looks like, because sometimes it's hard to tell on a mannequin. Also, me and my sister have relatively similar measurements. Now for the terno portion, my sister wanted a very fitted long sleeve, and so instead of cutting out the lace fabric right away, which is a bit more pricey, I chose to cut out the sleeve pattern piece in the muslins so that I could test it on my sister and make sure everything fit before using the actual fabric. And good thing I did that, because you can see in this video that the first sleeve I cut out was too small. It was a bit too tight, so we couldn't pull it all the way up onto her shoulder. And I had to make a few adjustments before cutting out another muslin. And we can see here that that second one fit a lot better. And from there, I could confidently cut out my sleeve pattern in the actual lace fabric. Once the Terno bolero was mostly sewn up, and the main pieces of the dress and the lining were sewn up, I was able to do a first fitting with my sister. You can see in this video that the lining and the base of the dress are two separate pieces at this point, so I had her try both of those on layered on top of each other, and I pinned it at the back where the zipper would be going. After that, we put on the Terno bolero that I had just sewn up, and I double checked for any adjustments that I had to make. Here you can see me layering and pinning more lace onto the sheer part of the train. And you can also see me draping that same lace over her body at different angles so she gets a better idea of what it will look like once that lace is sewn on. And here are some photos we took from that first fitting together with the Terno bolero and without it. And while I had my sister in the studio, since I was making this dress free of charge, I put her to work and I had her cutting up the little lace applique pieces that would go onto the bodice of her dress. And you can see her doing that here. Next, I started building the applique pieces onto the bodice, and here you can see me pinning and rearranging the different pieces to cover the surface area of the bodice front and the bodice back. And once I liked how everything was pinned and arranged, I secured everything by hand. Once she was finished cutting out the main trim along the lace fabric, you can see me hand sewing it onto the train in this video. And the reason I did it this way is so that we could have the scalloped edge curve along the bottom of the godet of the train to give it that extra detail. Once the train was complete, and since my sister was still with me at the studio that day, I had her try on the dress one more time so we could figure out if we wanted to add more lace onto the skirt. If you guys remember the initial sketch, there were lace godets at each side, but since we had decided to add in that sheer lace train, I wasn't sure if we should still stick with that idea, although it was something that my sister really liked. So I pinned some lace applique onto only one side of the dress to compare both looks. I personally thought the lace on the sides looked a little bit busy and was taking away from the train as a focal point, but my sister was still on the fence about it, so we decided to send these photos to the other bridesmaids to get their input, and in the end we decided against adding more lace so that the train could really pop. Another thing I had to sew by hand were the pearly straps, and this is also one of the little adjustments we made. If you remember the initial sketch, I sketched it with a single strap on each side, but we ended up going with a sort of double strap detail that was together at the front and then sort of separated to create a little V at the back. And I had to hand sew this on since the straps we chose were a sort of solid and 3D shape. So I sewed it by hand to make sure it wouldn't get stuck in my machine. At this point, the majority of the dress and the terno were basically finished, so I had my sister come in for a second fitting. You can see in this video that I'm encouraging her to walk around a little bit, sit down to make sure everything was comfortable. And basically the only adjustments we had to make was to take in the straps a little bit so they would sit closer to her skin, and also take up the dress at the front so that it would be shorter and more easy to walk in. I also added a few lace pieces around the neckline to give the illusion of the lace sort of peeking out as opposed to that clean line finish. And after that, the dress was basically complete and ready for the wedding. Now, before I show you guys some of the completed finished photos from the actual day of the wedding, I do have this clip of myself on the way with both my sister Jessica and her fiance at the time, Jared. And we asked him what he thought her dress was gonna look like, and this was his guess.
I think it's gonna be long sleeve because it's cold. I think it's gonna be quite lacy. So like maybe like lacy sleeves. I think it's gonna be Terno, obviously. Gotta represent HCHC.
HCHC.
No, JJHC. I mean to say.
Handcrafted.
What else? The silhouette. Well, do you know?
I don't know. I don't really know what
silhouette?
that means. I think it'll be a tight fit though. I don't think it'll be like a princessy thing. I think it'll be like
Princess
a little bit
like ball gown.
yeah, not like that.
Not like that.
I don't think. Wait. Oh, so yeah, maybe more like ball gown. Is that tighter fit?
No,
don't
ball
really
gown.
know.
Ball gown is like a princess.
Oh yeah, then not that. I don't
Not
think it's like
that.
that. But I also
Interesting.
don't think it's as tight as yours, Jillian.
As mine. Oh, okay.
Like yours went right down to the legs and then was like out. I don't think it'll be like that. Because she also
Oh.
wants to separate herself, you know?
Oh. To be a little different.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
That's all I know.
Good job.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more photos of my sister's dress, there'll be a lot on my Instagram, along with photos of other ternos that I also made for her wedding, including our bridesmaids ternos, the mother of the bride dress, the mother of the groom's dress, and also the flower girl's dress. So be sure to give my Instagram a follow at JillianJoyHC to stay up to date with all of these dresses, and stay tuned for more future terno projects.